Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Mengwen Fang. I'm currently a first-year student at UNC Chapel Hill, and I'm also a Carolina Navigator. Today, I'll be talking a little bit about my focus country, which is China, which is where I was born. And so I'll be talking a little bit about some of like the traditional clothing and how that kind of ties in with what modern China stands for. So before we start, does anyone kind of have any ideas about maybe what you would count as traditional Chinese clothing, or like maybe what colors they would be, or what kind of styles they would be? You can discuss with like the person sitting next to you, and then or like raise your hand, talk to your teacher, and then she can type it into the group chat. So I'll just leave that open. I'm going to start with kind of like a PowerPoint going through maybe how some women in traditional China would have dressed. So first off, we start in kind of 220 BC, going all the way to like 580 AD. And here you can see that like at the very beginning, it's a little bit more simplistic. It's a really long robe. And then eventually, as like the different dynasties change, as you see in the middle and then the end, it's kind of like a longer dress at the bottom with like a shorter robe on top. And then as we continue on into like the Wei, the Jin, southern dynasties, and then also some northern dynasties, you can see that things get a little bit more extravagant, like there's more ribbons, it's like a lot more colors. And then, but towards the end, like towards the Sui dynasty, which is like 580 to like 600 AD, you can see that people have started to get a little bit more like plain, not as much like drapery. So then we go into the Tang Dynasty, and you can see here that it's like a little bit more lighter, less cloth. Women are starting to kind of have like more extravagant hairstyles and like hairpins and different things like that. And then clothing becomes a lot more loose and not as tightly woven. And then continuing on, this is the early 10,000s up until like 1600s. You can see that people have started to wear more like head dresses, and like their hair is a lot like taller and longer. And then there's a lot more color. And then at the very beginning, for the first image in the Song Dynasty, this is when foot binding starts, which is something we'll talk about later in the presentation. And now we're kind of getting closer and closer to current times. So you can see that clothing is becoming a little bit more like less fancy, a little bit more like solid colors and normal clothing. And then finally here, we're kind of like starting to get into like the 1900s. And so you can see here people are wearing things that are a lot more plain, a lot more simplistic, nothing as like extravagant. And then here, this is like the 20th century and then the 21st century. You can see that these are just some longer gowns that are kind of based on traditional Chinese clothing. And typically, these would be worn during maybe Chinese New Year nowadays, or like weddings or different things like that, special occasions. And these kinds of dresses are called qipaos in Chinese. So here, we're kind of transitioning from women's clothing to men's clothing. So the thing is about men's clothing is that, as you can see, it's a lot more simplistic. It's just a long robe with kind of a sash tied around it. It has a nice like collar and it has a cuff. But compared to women's clothing, men's clothing was a lot more simplistic, a lot more easy to wear and to put on. And then here you can see is kind of a traditional Chinese men's jacket. Nowadays, instead of having maybe like the long robe, men would just have like a special jacket on. You can see that this one's in red. You can have gold, blue, green, just a lot of different colors. And then they would just wear a pair of like loose fitting pants underneath. Something that I wanted to point out, if you could see from the previous picture, is that these kind of special threaded buttons are very unique to like Chinese traditional clothing, instead of like the buttons that we see kind of like now in our clothing, these are like the traditional like cloth woven buttons, and so they can be very, very extravagant. But this one is one of the more simpler ones. So then I'm going to talk a little bit about men's hair, which is something that kind of changed when different dynasties took over, when there were new emperors, when new people came in and invaded. So as you can see at the first one, from the antiquity to the Ming Dynasty, which is the time like all the way before like the 1640s, men had really long uncut hair, and they would like put it up in buns. And so this meant that like you were very aware of society, you were very loyal to your family, and you were very culturally aware. But if you were cut your hair, that would be very uncivilized, and that would count as being very barbaric. But then when the Qing dynasty took over, you can see here that the first portion, the forward portion of the man's head is shaved completely. And so this was kind of the style. It was called, people called it tonsured hair. And so you had your hair bald at the front, but then braided in the back. And that was kind of the classic hairstyle from like the 1640s all the way to the early 1900s. And then finally, after the Cultural Revolution in China, so around like the early 1900s, China kind of opened its doors to a lot of like Western influences, a lot of countries in like Europe and America and stuff. So here you can see that influence because men had to start cutting their hair. And if they had like long hair or like tonsured hair, like you see in the second image, people thought that they were very backwards thinking, or they were very loyal to the previous Qing dynasty, which is not something that people wanted. So I kind of mentioned this earlier. I was going to talk a little bit about foot binding. So does anyone have an idea about maybe what this kind of object is? You can raise your hand, tell your teacher, and then she can post it into the chat. That way we can kind of like guess, like, you know, what these are. So I'll give you a moment to kind of talk about that. So as you can see here, this is actually a shoe that women might have worn in maybe like the 1600s or 1700s, even up to like the 1800s and 1900s in China. And it's super, super small. If you compare it to the ruler, it's only about 5 inches long. And so maybe for babies, this is like a normal size, you know, because babies have really small feet. But this is actually a shoe for grown women. So if you just look at your own foot and compare how small this shoe is, it's not very normal. And the reason why the shoes are so small is because women underwent a process called foot binding, where they would crush their feet backwards. So they would break the bones in your foot and kind of like mold them into a ball. So kind of like if you put your hand into a fist, that would be kind of the size of like your foot, or like what they would want your foot to look like, because they thought that small feet were very attractive, were very pretty. And so this was something that was done in kind of like ancient China. And the reason why it became banned was because it made women, it was hard for them to walk. For the rest of their lives, it would be very painful for them. Sometimes they would get infected, so it led to a lot of health complications. And then in like the 20th century, it eventually became banned in China. So I mentioned a lot of different clothing from like a lot of different dynasties. Again, this is not all of China, because since China has over 50 ethnic groups, or China has 50 ethnic groups, they have a wide variety of different dresses, different ways that the men dress, different styles and stuff. But this is kind of a generalization about how most Chinese people dressed in ancient China all the way up until modern times. And so the reason why this is important is not that current China nowadays is very modern, especially in the past century, when again they opened their doors to Western influences and got ideas from Europe, from America. But the Chinese people are also very conscious of their long history. So China has thousands of years of history, and the people are very aware of this, and they really want to preserve it. So a lot of the clothing that I showed you, especially like the current like dresses, like the qipao and the button-up jackets for men, they're not worn like on a daily basis. People in China dress like you and me in like t-shirts or shorts, but for special occasions, maybe like Chinese New Year or like weddings, they'll bring out these clothing because they understand that it's kind of part of their history. So for weddings and Chinese New Year, typically people wear red and gold because they believe gold will bring a lot of like wealth and money to you, and then red is just kind of fortune. So these are just different traditions and things that have been passed on from ancient China. So I hope that kind of by discussing a little bit more about maybe the past in China, it's easier to understand maybe the present and why it's so important for Chinese people to understand their past and to have that kind of culture and tradition. So I really appreciated you all listening to me today. I hope that you learned a little bit more about China, not just maybe about their clothing, but also a little bit more about like their culture and understanding how important tradition is to them. So thank you, everyone.
Hello, everyone. My name is Akari, and I'm a student at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and I'm also a part of the Carolina Navigators. And today I'll be talking a little bit about the Star Festival in Japan. So again, my name is Akari. It's spelled Akari, and I'm from a country called Japan. So first, do you all know where Japan is? If you can point on the map on the screen. Do you know where it is? Give it a guess. Japan is right here. It's a teeny tiny island country in East Asia. And I was born in a city called Yokohama, which is pretty near to Tokyo, the capital of Japan. And I spent most of my life there till I was 18 years old. And when I was 18, I moved to the US to attend college here. And today I'm so excited to share a little bit of my country, about my country. So let's get started. So the Star Festival, which is held on July 7th, it is called Tanabata in Japanese. Yes. And it is originated from a Chinese folklore called The Weaver Girl and the Coward. This is a romantic but a little bit sad story, which is about a princess who is very beautiful and make beautiful clothing, and a handsome, brave man whose job was to take care of cows. They fell in love to each other and got married. However, once they got married, they stopped working because they were too busy hanging out together. And the father of the princess got really mad and decided to separate the two on the opposite sides of the Milky Way River and allow them to see each other only once a year. So earlier I mentioned the date of the festival. Do you remember what date it was? So if you see the Japanese writing of the Tanabata, it looks like this. And the letter on the left side means 7, and the letter on the right side means evening. So the Tanabata festival is held on the 7th day of the 7th month of the year, which is July 7th. And that's the day that the two can see each other once a year. So what do we do on July 7th? So the custom is to write a wish on a piece of paper and hang it on a bamboo branch like this. You can write any kind of wishes. You can write, I want to become a basketball player. I want to become taller. Or you can wish for family health. You can write whatever you want. Also, there's a lot of festivals held all around Japan, which looks like this. And at the festival, there's a lot of decorations that look like the paper strips you write the wish on. There's also at the festival a lot of food stands, like a lot of food stands. And let me first ask, what kind of food do you like at the food stand if you go to a maybe state festival or any kind of festivals? Maybe tornado potatoes, cotton candy, or funnel cake. So some of the popular food at the festival are made in Japan is shaved ice with flavored syrup like strawberry flavored, lemon, cantaloupe flavor, and also barbecued chicken in a stick. They are pretty popular and I like them all too. People also like to dress in traditional clothing called yukata, which looks like this. It's made of cotton and it's a straight seams and it has white sleeves on it. And you just put a belt around your waist to hold secure. There are so many different kinds of pattern you can have on the yukata. You can have cherry blossoms, maybe sakura, cherry blossoms, sparrow, swallow, iris, any kind of flowers. We don't wear yukata in an everyday occasion, but maybe in a special occasion when you have any festivals or ceremony, on maybe graduation. And so I'm gonna go back to the web camera. Okay, so today I brought my own yukata to show you how it looks like. It has a pattern. It's a navy tie-dyed yukata. It looks like this, and it has a flower on it. And it looks like this. Can you all see it? And it comes with a belt. Mine is red, so it's gonna look like this. It looks easy to wear, but it's actually really hard if you want to make it really pretty and neat. And I also made some decorations for the Tanabata, like when you put the piece of paper on the bamboo street, you make these kind of paper-made decorations. This is a lantern, if you can tell. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's gonna look like this. Star Festival is something I always look forward for the summer, and whenever I go to the same festival almost every year, and it's a really great opportunity to see my old friends from the elementary school and middle school, high school, and it makes me feel that I'm in Japan, and it's something that you can't experience in any other country. So, and you can have good food too. So I'm really excited to go back this summer and go to the festival again. And I hope you enjoy this presentation. If you have any questions, type it in, tell your teacher, and he or she can type it in so that I can answer. So I have a couple of questions. The first one is, do the wishes come true? I really hope so, but sometimes it depends on the wishes. It's like I want to have something for the Christmas or whatever. It may come true, but yeah, but it's something that you want to rely on and just enjoy it. And another question is, why do they put them on a bamboo trees? Can it work on other trees? I'm not quite sure why it's on a bamboo tree, but I think bamboo tree has a meaning like strength, and because it grows really tall, so I think that's why it hang it on a bamboo tree. And I've never seen hanging on any other trees, like random trees outside, but it's usually on a bamboo tree. And how do you tie a yukata? So this belt is just it doesn't have any clip or anything. It's just a piece of cloth. So you just wrap it around your waist several times. sometimes like this, like, and it's so hard to make it secure. So that's why you need a lot of practice, and or maybe go to a place where there's someone you can ask them to put them on for you. It's really hard to wear by myself. So another question is, how do you cut the orange paper? I guess it's this one. So this one is pretty easy to make. So if you want to try it, you just bring a piece of paper and fold it twice. Make it half once and one more time. And you cut from each side with like all the way, but not cut all the way. You just leave a little bit of space and cut from each side, and it'll make, and if you open it, it's gonna make it like this. I will try to find a link if I can find any instructions for it. And
what is the clothing made of?
What is the clothing made of? It's made of cotton. It's 100% cotton. I think that's it. If you still have any questions, feel free to make a comment on it. And I really hope you all enjoyed it. And that's all we got. Thank you for watching. Bye.
So thank you for attending our virtual festival today. We'll be sending out an email to you guys. We'd love some feedback. And we'll be posting the YouTube videos on our website and also on our YouTube channel. So have a great day. Thanks.